In 1895, British author H.G. Wells published a strange and fantastical story about a man who invented a machine that could travel not just through space, but time. He uses it to voyage millions of years into a strange alternative future, meeting the mutant descendants of humanity, even witnessing the end of Earth itself before vanishing completely. Just a story. Yet, through history, there are people who claim to have done exactly what Wells described, to have actually travelled through time. Some by creating time machines of their own, some purely by accident. Many have not returned. In this video, we'll be examining some of these incredible tales, looking at the science behind them, and finding out, could they really be true? So buckle up as we investigate the mind-bending possibilities of time travel and alternate realities, a story that takes in some of the greatest minds in history: the US Navy, Nazi Germany, the CIA, aliens, and a climate activist Greta Thunberg. And we won't even need a flux capacitor. Can a cube that does not last for any time at all have a real existence? Any real body must have extension in 4 dimensions. It must have length, breadth, thickness, and duration. When he wrote those words, Herbert George Wells was creating science fiction. Yet, just 10 years later, they started to become science fact, with the publication of Albert Einstein's special theory of relativity. By showing that space and time were interwoven, Einstein blew a hole through centuries of scientific belief. 10 years later still, he rocked the world again with the general theory of relativity. Among the incredible implications of these theories was the possibility that, under certain conditions, it might really be possible to go forwards through time, far beyond your own natural lifespan, to meet your distant descendants and see the world of tomorrow, just like Wells's time traveller. Mind-blowing as all that is, experiments have proved Einstein's theories to be correct. But, of course, in reality, no one has yet moved forward through time. In 1950, the body of a man around 30 years old is said to have arrived at a New York morgue. He'd been seen in the middle of Times Square, seemingly dazed and confused by his surroundings. Trying to cross a street against the lights, he was struck by a cab and killed. The cop assigned to his case quickly became puzzled. The man's clothes seemed oddly old-fashioned. His pockets were full of out-of-date coins and notes that looked brand new. He also carried a letter postmarked 1876, cards giving the name of Rudolph Fentz and his address on Fifth Avenue. Only there was no Rudolph Fentz listed in the New York City phone directories, and the address on Fifth Avenue had been occupied by a business for many years. Eventually, police uncovered the details of a Rudolph Fentz Jr., a man in his 60s who died 5 years earlier. His widow told the stunned cops that her husband's father, Rudolph Sr., had left home for a walk one night and never returned. That was in the year of 1876, 3/4 of a century before his odd death in Times Square at the age of 30. It's not an isolated story. In 2006, another confused man was found wandering the streets of Kyiv in the Ukraine. His clothes were outdated, he carried an ID pass dating from the days when Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, and also an old-fashioned camera, though again, it looked brand new. The man said his name was Sergei Ponomarenko, that he'd been born in 1932, and until his sudden arrival in 2006, he'd been living a normal life in the 1950s. Days later, he vanished again, leaving only his camera behind. Even stranger, when the film it contained was developed, the photographs were all of Kyiv, as it had looked in the 1950s. Could these be actual accounts of time travel? Or is there an alternative explanation? The stories of Rudolf Fentz and Sergei Ponomarenko have one key thing in common. It seems neither man had meant to travel through time, if that's what actually happened. They had both been going about their ordinary lives, only to suddenly arrive in a completely different reality. But how could you accidentally travel through time? Einstein's original theories of time travel are based on the concept of time dilation. When you're moving, time passes more slowly for you than for a person who isn't moving. At low speeds, the effect is tiny. Over the course of a year, astronauts on the International Space Station will age 0.1 sec less than someone on the ground. But if you were to travel close to the speed of light for a year, you might arrive back on Earth to find 50 or 100 years had passed in that time, and your grandchildren were now older than you. Experiments have shown that much is proven fact, if you could travel fast enough. But it couldn't happen instantly, and it would only allow travel forward through time. Working with physicist Nathan Rosen, though, Einstein came up with an even wilder idea that might offer one explanation for stories like those of Fentz, Ponomarenko, and also the strange story of Thomas Johnson. In 1912, Thomas was a boy of 10, living on his parents' farm in New York State. One day he was playing with friends by a lake on the property. Suddenly, according to eyewitnesses, a whirlpool began to form. Curious, Thomas got closer, only to be swallowed up by the whirlpool. His friends ran to alert Thomas's father, but the boy had vanished into the water without trace. Of course, there are plenty of explanations for what happened. The children weren't supposed to be playing there. It could all be a kid's fantasy to cover up a simple accidental drowning. But that's just the start of the mystery. It's said Thomas's father never got over the disappearance of his son, and in later years got into the habit of walking by the same lake as a way of remembering his boy. In July of 1970, by now aged 91, he was by the water's edge one evening when suddenly it began boiling and swirling, just as the witnesses had described so many years before. And then, from nowhere, the form of a boy emerged onto the surface. Disorientated, looking perhaps 5 years older, but to his father, unmistakably the same boy who'd vanished nearly 60 years earlier. Thomas himself, though at first confused and scared, also soon recognised the now much older man as his father. Hearing this incredible story, local authorities were understandably suspicious. Was the boy a chancer trying to con the old man? It's said his fingerprints were taken, which, to their amazement, matched those of the young Thomas Johnson. Just as general relativity predicts, the boy had barely aged on his travels. But where had he been for nearly 60 years of Earth time? And what was the strange occurrence that whipped up the lake and swallowed him? Some sources suggest it could have been a wormhole, a passage through space-time, allowing faster-than-light travel between two distant points. Officially called an Einstein-Rosen bridge, this was the incredible new idea that the two great physicists had postulated, potentially another way to travel through time, without breaking the laws of nature. Would a phenomenon like a wormhole help explain these cases? Just as with time dilation, the problem is that, according to the proven science of relativity, wormholes don't simply happen. Huge amounts of energy are required, or extreme gravitational force, such as those found near a black hole. Perhaps, some say, in a way, science can't yet explain. It could happen spontaneously. That might certainly explain a lot of strange occurrences through history. But for now, it seems like we'd require an artificial way to engineer a trip into the future, a literal time machine. Coming up, I'll be looking at the real-life attempts that people have made to create just such a machine. This image seems like an ordinary historical photograph taken at the reopening of a bridge in British Columbia during the 1940s. But look closer. does the guy with the shades seem a bit too modern? His hairstyle, the logo tee he seems to be wearing, above all, the camera he's carrying. At first sight, they all seem to date from a more recent era. Perhaps it's nothing, but some people claim that this image is proof that as well as moving forward in time, it's possible to go backwards as well. Even more incredibly, it's alleged that there's not just one time traveler in this image, but two. In 2003, a man using the name Andrew Carlson is alleged to have been arrested by the US Securities and Exchange Commission for a series of 126 astonishing trades that transformed his initial $800 investment into over $350 million. During a 4-hour confession, he said he was able to play the market so successfully because he was born 200 years into the future, with access to historical records of stock movements. Among other claims, he said he could give investigators the cure for AIDS and the whereabouts of Osama bin Laden. Released on bail, Carlson vanished without trace, but not before offering authorities one final proof of his time-jumping chops. This man in the same photo, Carlson told them, was him. Though why two time travellers would both want to attend the reopening of a bridge in Canada has never been explained. So, is this the same man? Let us know what you think in the comments. As we've seen, there is a scientific basis for the possibility of travelling into the future, but travelling to the past seems to be a lot harder. Many scientists claim it would break the laws of known physics, including the conservation of energy and the increase of entropy or disorder. There are also issues with causality, often called the grandfather paradox. If I travel back in time and kill my grandfather, how can I have been born in the first place? But for some, images like this may show there are ways round the paradoxes. And there are certainly rumours that some agencies and governments have tried to create a machine to make it happen. USS Eldridge was a naval destroyer escort with a long and distinguished career. But today it's infamous as the vessel at the centre of an alleged incident known as the Philadelphia Experiment. In 1943, a supposed Serret test of a newly invented invisibility field around the ship is said to have gone badly wrong, making some of the crew disappear and fusing others to the ship itself. A naval officer by the name of Al Bielek, who claimed to be aboard, said later that while invisibility was the aim, the actual result was time travel. Bielek says he was transported to the year 2137, the first of many trips through time. Was this really the moment the US invented a time machine? According to Bielek, the planned invisibility shield was said to have been powered by a powerful electromagnetic field. And there are valid military uses for electromagnetic weapons at sea that are still in use today, to defeat magnetic mines, for instance. Experiments with this sort of degaussing technology were taking place in 1943. So, is the Philadelphia experiment just a garbled sailor's story? Or perhaps entirely by accident, did the Navy stumble upon a way of harnessing the incredible forces needed to actually move back and forth through time and space itself? Incredibly, there are more hints that the US government might have been working on ways to travel through time. According to Seattle-based attorney Andrew Bosiago, during the late 1960s, the CIA initiated Project Pegasus, experimenting with not just one, but 8 different methods of time travel to send men, women, and even children to multiple different eras. Bosiago himself said he was only 7 years old when he was first sent on a mission. Among the places he visited were the Gettysburg Address in 1863, where he says he was even caught on camera. He stated that some of these methods were based on papers found after the death of Nikola Tesla, the pioneer behind many discoveries in the field of electromagnetics. One is said to have been based on radiant energy, a force that is latent and pervasive in the universe and has among its properties the capacity to bend time-space, which Tesla is said to have uncovered just before his death. Whether that's true or not, one thing can be proven. Tesla died in January 1943, just 6 months or so before the Philadelphia experiment is said to have taken place. But the US wasn't the first government that's been accused of dabbling in time travel. As we'll see next, many people believe the Nazis were also experimenting with electromagnetic technology and may have created a time machine that was actually caught on camera. In the year 2000, a Polish journalist named Igor Witowski published a book titled The Truth About the Wonder Weapon. He alleges that classified Polish government files show that from 1942, Nazi scientists had been experimenting with a device called Die Glock, or in English, the bell. It was described as a glowing, rotating contraption, about 12 feet high and 9 feet wide. It emitted a strange blue glow and was extremely radioactive, which killed many of those involved in the testing. As with the Philadelphia experiment, it appears that time travel wasn't the initial aim, but an unexpected side effect of the technology. Among those working on the project, it's alleged, was the future father of the US space program, Dr. Werner von Braun. The Nazis did certainly dabble in some strange fields, but if Die Glock was a time machine, seems it didn't work well enough to help Germany change the outcome of World War II. But there is an interesting postscript to the tale. Remember Sergei Ponomarenko, the man who turned up in 21st century Kyiv with a camera full of photographs from the 1950s? The last image on his film was this one, captured, he said, just before his sudden journey through time. Could that object actually be Die Glock? And is it possible that machines like this could defy the laws of physics and carry people not just forward, but backwards in time? We'll be finding out next. As we've seen, the theories of relativity do hint that it might be possible to travel forward in time. Incredibly though, another advanced branch of science might provide ways to go backwards and even visit completely different realities. Quantum mechanics deals with the behavior of particles at a microscopic scale. At this level, reality is blurred and uncertain. Particles behave in very unexpected ways and seem to have connections to each other that science can't explain. Though its findings have been tested and proven, the results are often at odds with Einstein's work and our understanding of the world. And in 2022, John Clauser, Alan Aspect, and Anton Zeilinger shared a Nobel Prize for demonstrating that, locally at least, the universe may not be real at all in the sense that we believe. As long ago as the 1950s, a physicist named Hugh Everett used quantum mechanics to develop a truly mind-blowing idea that became known as the many worlds theory. He argued that since every event has multiple different outcomes, every event splits our universe into multiple parallel realities in which every possible outcome of that event exists. Other scientists have proposed similar theories, an infinite stream of different timelines for each of our lives, all equally real. Perhaps what we see as time travel might actually be journeys between these alternate realities. As we'll see next, that might explain why some time travelers seem to come in order to warn us. If any of the theories of multiple alternative realities is correct, perhaps some time travelers really are coming back to warn us against taking the wrong actions now, or maybe even trying to change their future, just like in The Terminator. Al Bielek, the man who claimed to have been part of the Philadelphia experiment, brought back many such stories of events to come, including a war that kills most of the world's population. and the disintegration of society in North America. A shadowy TikToker named Eno Alaric, who claims to be from the year 2671, has been warning of many events he says will happen soon. From the arrival of aliens to further global conflicts. He offers no proof for his claims, and as with Bielek, there's no sign of any of his predictions coming true. These days, we're often told of the threat posed by climate change. Greta Thunberg has become a hero to many for her work in raising the issue. Yet this photo from the 1800s suggests she may be more than a 21st century Swedish schoolgirl. Has she been sent to fight against climate catastrophe in multiple different eras? If so, where and when is she really from? The universe is definitely stranger than we imagine. Science says there are ways we might travel through time. Personally, though, I think some of the tales we've heard are more convincing than others. The story of Rudolph Fentz is eerily similar to the plot of a short story published in the 1950s. That of Andrew Carlson may have all been a tabloid invention that went viral and was taken to be real. With many others, there's simply no proof one way or the other. Thomas Johnson and his father, reunited after 58 years, are said to have changed their names to escape any further publicity. The truth behind the stories of government involvement told by Al Bielek and Andrew Bosiago are hidden under layers of secrecy and, of course, officially denied. But some time travellers may still be out there. Sergei Ponomarenko, born in the 1930s, then transported from the 1950s to 2006 under the influence of Die Glocke, is said to have been in contact with his girlfriend recently, sending her this snap of himself posing in Kyiv, this time in 2050. So, do you think this is a photo from the future? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this travel through time, like, subscribe, and check out some of these other mysteries on our channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back again not too far into the future, or maybe the past.